So I work on a show called BBC Trending. We report on social media trends and we ask why they matter. You could call us the BBC's bureau on the internet because we're constantly roaming the digital streets. But today, I want to talk to you about how social media is playing a pivotal role in the dynamics of war and conflict. It's affecting how we as journalists gather information and how we report on it. It's affecting how groups disseminate their message and how they gain support. But it's also affecting how people share information and how they share misinformation. The image behind me here, this was being tweeted around the time that violence was breaking out in Gaza earlier this year. Similarly, this image was being shared on social media using the hashtag #GazaUnderAttack. But neither of these images are from Gaza. They're from Aleppo in Syria, as the video I'm about to show you next demonstrates.
There has been Israeli aerial attacks on Gaza, particularly soon after the bodies of the 3 teenagers were found. There has been casualties as a result of those in Gaza aerial attacks. The hashtag has been popular with people around the world for trying to get news and photos and what's happening on the ground.
I have to be honest, I did find out recently that one of those images are from Syria, and I deleted one of my posts that has that image in there. It's disappointing that images get shared quite quickly. I guess that's the difference between the internet and creditable newspaper publication, where pictures are from a source and they're credited.
I tweeted it just for my family and friends to see it. I didn't really expect to get over 1,800 retweets. I didn't actually know that the picture was recycled. I guess I just use it as an illustration. People don't need to take it as a literal account, because if you think of bombs going off, that's pretty much what it looks like.
The misuse of pictures on social media is not particularly unique to this particular hashtag. We've seen this before in Syria, in Iraq, and you've got to keep an eye on who you're following, where did this picture come from.
So, one of the key things that that video demonstrates is the importance of authenticity and verification of what's being shared online. But what I thought was interesting from talking to the 2 women who featured in that video was as soon as I told them that the images that they were sharing were not from Gaza, I didn't get the response of shock or regret from either of them. They still seemed to believe that the images they were sharing served the purposes for which they intended. It was more for illustrative purposes, at least in their eyes. And it's not just journalists who are asking lots of questions about what's being shared online. Social media users themselves have become really discerning about what they're seeing, which leads me to my next question. Is this the same woman? Do you think she looks similar? She looks quite similar in at least 2 of the pictures. Well, social media users in Ukraine seemed to think so earlier this year when trouble was breaking out between Ukraine and Russia. And the theory being put out there by users online was that a woman was appearing in news reports around the country, adopting various different names and taking different identities, but spreading a pro-Russian message. And they took to social media to share images and post them on a website called stopfake.org. And it showed the climate of paranoia at the time. Now, you may recognize the symbol that's behind me here. It's the Arabic letter N, noon. And it was popping up in my news feed over the summer. A lot of people started to change their avatars on their social media platforms to this symbol. And the reason they did it was because in Mosul in Iraq, where there's a Christian community, Islamic State painted the letter N on the houses of Christians as a way of earmarking them for persecution. And the reason they put the letter N is because N stands for Nasrani, which means Christian. But what happened on social media users were having none of it. They basically turned things around and they said, we're going to use the letter N in solidarity with Christians, irrespective of what religion you're from. And so we had people like the Archbishop of Canterbury even changing his avatar and using the hashtag #WeAreN. So it becomes a form of protest online and a way of standing up against groups like Islamic State, despite feeling powerless against them. This is the journalist James Foley. James Foley was working in Syria, and in 2012, he was abducted. But earlier this year, in August, a video was released by Islamic State showing his execution. I always feel slightly emotional looking at this picture. I never met James Foley, but I have a lot of friends and colleagues who did. And on the day that it was announced that he had been killed, this was one of the images that was trending on social media. Social media users responded to this incident, this terrible, tragic event, in a number of ways. Some went online to watch the video, the gruesome, graphic video. But others said, share this image instead. Share this image of James Foley in his life rather than in his death. This is the memory of James Foley that we should remember. But the question is, can that actually make a difference? And what a lot of people also did was they used a hashtag ISIS Media Blackout. It was a way of trying to stand up against ISIS. Can that actually make any real difference against a group like this? And it's a question we put to a radicalization expert called Joseph Carter. Run clip, please.
There's sort of a wealth of intelligence that comes from these accounts, and every time you shut them down, you limit the amount of material somebody like myself who studies this is able to glean from the account in order to find out answers to these questions. The James Foley video, along with a lot of the videos that we've seen from ISIS's media groups put out, are very contextualized. They're framed a certain way, and they're everything down to the setting, to the way that the knife that they chose to use, the message they put out is very, very specific, and it's meant to send a very specific, precise message. I think it's misguided for us to focus mostly on the violence and the brutality in the video. What we should be focusing on is how intelligently the Islamic State has been able to frame this video and put it out into social media and obtain the reaction, the exact reaction that they wanted.
In April this year, more than 200 schoolgirls were abducted by the extremist group Boko Haram in northern Nigeria. What happened on social media in response to that was the hashtag #BringBackOurGirls. This hashtag became an international phenomenon. BBC Trending was the very first media outlet within the BBC to report on it, as we're constantly monitoring social trends. Even people like Michelle Obama used the hashtag and posted a picture of herself holding a placard with a hashtag on it. But then, months after the girls had gone missing, and they still hadn't been returned, and the story was no longer at the top of the news agenda in the running order on the TV 9 o'clock news. It was almost as if the news agenda had forgotten about the girls from Chibok. However, there was a huge contingent on social media who never stopped calling to bring back our girls.
This group is thought to be behind the abduction of more than 100 teenage girls from a boarding school.
The hashtag #BringBackOurGirls has now been tweeted over 1 million times.
My husband and I are outraged and heartbroken.
Got to keep it in the minds and hearts of the world that these girls were kidnapped from school trying to get an education. I had the opportunity to go to Nigeria. I promised them that I would make sure that I got everyone that I possibly could to tweet every single solitary day. Congress is tweeting, people retweet it. It's just tweet, 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 tweet. Hashtag #BringBackOurGirls. And we're just praying and hoping that we can find these girls.
So that video really shows the importance of activism online and how people persist. Now, this is not a mistake. This is part of the presentation. You might recognize the person up on the screen here. It's Kim Kardashian of Keeping Up with the Kardashians fame. What has she got to do with war and conflict? Well, actually, she was one of the people who made a hashtag about a place in Syria go viral earlier this year. It's called Kesab, and here's why.
When you think of Kim Kardashian, you probably think of, or even this. Kim Kardashian isn't known for politics, but recently she took to Twitter to comment on the crisis in Syria. She tweeted about an attack on a town called Kesab in the northwest of the country. It's a former Assad stronghold, and reports say it was taken over by rebels. The reason it caught Kim's attention is because it has a large Armenian population. That's where the Kardashian family are originally from.
We're very pleased to see that Kim Kardashian was able to help our campaign to get Save Kesab trending. Kesab is the last indigenous Armenian population on the territory of the former Ottoman Empire, where Armenians once numbered in the millions. This is about protecting a population who are now today driven from their homes.
Save Kesab has been tweeted over 100,000 times. Unsurprisingly, it's been most popular in the US and Russia, the places with the largest Armenian diaspora. But while the Kardashians have been keeping up with Armenians in Syria, Syrians themselves have had a mixed reaction online.
It has generated a lot of sarcastic comments on her attempt to show that she understands the complexity of the Syrian conflict. We've seen cartoons even belittling her.
Questions have been raised on social media about the authenticity of reports of violence from Kesab. Some of the images shared online have been exposed as fake, and critics say it discredits the campaign.
So that story shows the soft power that celebrities have in turning the spotlight onto whatever issues that they choose. Now, the power of celebrity is nothing new. However, social media has definitely augmented that power. And ultimately, storytelling is at the heart of everything that we do as journalists. And that what we're doing on BBC Trending is finding some of the heartening stories. For example, this girl that you see in this picture here, it's a 9-year-old called Rasha. She's from Syria, she's lived in a war zone, she can't even go to school because it's too dangerous. And yet, through social media, she's become a star on YouTube after featuring in a soap opera satirizing the war. So despite the darkest of situations, there is still light, flickers of light to be found, and some of those flickers of light can be found in social media. What next for journalists and for social media and for us who are communicating with each other in the digital space? Well, I truly believe that chat apps is and will increasingly become the place in which we distribute our news and the place in which we find stories and the place in which we gather news. And it's already happening in situations where people are using chat apps as a way of overcoming difficult situations. For example, in Hong Kong, where the thousands took to the streets, the pro-democracy demonstrations there. The social media platforms were being censored. However, people took to the Fire Chat app and they used Bluetooth and daisy chaining as a way of getting around that censorship. So that is something that's already happening. BBC Trending is also trying to respond to the changes that are happening in the whole broadcast model. Breaking news, television news has completely changed as a result of social media. How is it ever possible to keep up with what people are writing online? And so in response to many of these changes, we've just launched a new format called Trending Now on our YouTube channel, and we are going to be bringing you daily videos and breaking social media trends within a social platform. So there's absolutely no doubt that social media is a place where political, cultural, and social change is happening, and it is also one of the newest weapons in war. I'm Anne-Marie Tomchak, and I work on BBC Trending, and if you want to find out any more about these stories and lots of the other stories that we're covering, you can get them on bbc.com/trending. Thank you very much.